Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm here with Walt Pavlo, and we are going over right now the difference between hiding, how to embezzle $6 million while trying to hide a $100 million fraud.
Here's like, Walt, we got to hide this $5 million. I go, yeah, but this guy over here is wanting me to hide 20. Yeah. So
Can we put it in the closet? No, I've got 40 million in the closet already.
I mean, it starts to get really tough. And then that's when I said, I got to find somebody to talk to, right. So I went outside the company, and there was this guy named Harold Mann. And Harold was a couple of years older than me. I was like 32 at the time. He was 34. And he was rich. I mean, this guy had a big Mercedes. He lived 3 months out of the year in Canada and the rest of the time in Atlanta. And he just lived the life. And he had been a carrier on MCI's network, and I knew him, and he had since left. And I said, you know what, maybe I'm going to ask him for a job. I'm going to get the hell, I'm bailing. I'm pulling the ripcord. And so I went to him and said that, I was honest with him. I said, I told him the story that you and I have talked about here, and he was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Those are big numbers. I mean, where are the auditors? Where's your boss? I mean, how the hell are you doing this? And I just explained to him, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing these notes. I'm doing and he was like,
they're all my boss and the auditors are all semi-involved. They all understand. I'm not hiding this. They kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
They're not asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But
I'm meeting my numbers. Right. But I don't know how much longer I can do it. And so he told me, like, why don't you, let me think about it. And he was a crafty guy, and met with him a few more times. And, I became more confident in telling him, like, this is exactly what I'm doing. He's like, wow. He's like, Walt, I got an idea. Why don't you stay where you're at? And I think that I can make these little companies good, solid companies. Number two, I think I can make them pay MCI. Like, wow, that's good too. And number three, I can make me and you a hell of a lot of money. I was like, wow, what's number three about? All you got to do, Walt, is do what you continue to do. And basically it led to another fraud. Now, what I'm about to talk about is not something that I would have gone into the company and said, wow, I could have made a lot of money, stealing. I mean, this was like an evolution of like, okay, it was a realization that like, okay, I'm about to make some money. So what's wrong with that? Everybody else is making money, right. and I'm making a lot of money for a lot of other people at my own risk. I'm taking this risk. I don't have $200 million bucks. So what Harold and I devised is like, put pressure on one of these customers, Walt, that you don't like. Pick one, anyone. Pick one that it's going to be difficult for that person to ever go get money. So I picked a company. It's called TNI. They were in the pornography business, 900 business. They owed $2 million bucks. Called up Mr. TNI and said, you owe us $2 million bucks or you're going to be disconnected. This guy immediately, he's got to go find fucking $200 million bucks somewhere.
Right.
And, or 2 million. I when we get the numbers confused, $2 million bucks pretty quick. And he's got to do it within a couple of weeks or he's going to be disconnected. And this guy's upset at me, like, oh, you don't give me a chance, come on.
You knew it was coming.
It's got to be coming. It really is my job, right?
It's $2 million. You got the bill. You know when it's due. So, yeah.
So he's got to find, he doesn't have the money. Look, Matt, these guys were going out. This guy had Atlanta Braves suite. He had Atlanta Falcons suite, Atlanta Hawks suite. He got a private airplane. He got all this. He's got it going on.
Right.
But he doesn't have the $2 million bucks. I can tell you that.
On all that other stuff.
So into this guy's office after that phone call is made is Harold, and Harold portrays himself as an angel investor. Gives short-term loans to companies like this. And this guy's going, my God, your timing couldn't be better. Doesn't know there's any relationship. This guy says, you can give me $2 million bucks. And he goes, oh yeah, we specialize in short-term loans. Tell me what's going on. So he explains it to him. Harold does a little due diligence, brings in like some accountants to look at the books. The books are a mess. The guy hadn't paid taxes. It just is and Harold says, I tell you what, I went to our loan committee and you're a great candidate for us. We're going to take a chance with you. And he goes, well, you got to get me the money because I have to pay MCI.
Right.
And Harold says, well, look, I've only known you a short period of time. Here's what we've been more comfortable with. We're going to wire the money directly to MCI. And once they receive it, they'll give you this, they'll let you know the wire's been received and your account balance is zero. But in return, you're going to give me $250,000 down for putting this deal together just as a fee.
Right.
You're going to repay $10,000 a week for the next 2 years. And you can give me 25% ownership of your company. And you're going to make payments to banks in the Grand Cayman Islands. And for whatever reason, the last one.
That doesn't sound fishy at all.
No, at all. Unless you're desperate, right? And so this guy's desperate. He goes, that's a good deal for me. And so there is no money ever wired. There is no money ever wired to MCI.
No, I know.
And
then you come in and you,
I come in and
extend his
$2 million. I can make it disappear. It disappears.
He has no idea. He thinks it was paid. He gets, and his phone stay on, right?
His phone stay on. He gets an invoice. He goes like, hey, you just got a $2 million payment on it, which never was made.
Right.
The guy's paid $250,000 in the Cayman Islands, $10,000 a week. I'm actually meeting with Harold on the weekends to go over the finances of this small company to make sure that all the boyfriends and girlfriends are off payroll, the suites are sold, we're out of all that stuff. They do become a responsible pornography company, but they're paying their bills on time. They're paying their taxes. All the things are brought up to speed. They're paying MCI on time, and they're paying me,
right?
To the Cayman Islands. So it was like a win-win all the way around, right? It's just like
I didn't know any of this, by the way. I've seen the
craziest thing, though, right? And so but you look back. I remember I spoke at a Ivy League school, and I told them about how this scam worked. And this one kid spoke up and said, "God, if I would have been you, Walt, I would have gone to that guy Caribbean Telephone and taken like $1 million off of the table to say, put it in the trash bag for me, and I'll make sure your invoice goes to zero." Right. All right. We can keep this going for as long as you want. And I go, yeah, I guess I could have done that, but that's like stealing. But if you do it this other way, it didn't feel like stealing. It felt very. It was a big rationalization to be able to do it. Yeah. And then we find another customer and we do it, and we do another customer and doing it, and then. Before we knew it, it was almost $6 million. That's in offshore accounts. The money never came through any entity in the U.S. Right? These customers are paying it directly to bank accounts down there.
This is such a better story than I thought.
It is.
And it's the worst part is, Colby, is that I actually have a little bit. Not that I didn't already respect you, but unfortunately for me now, it just actually went up, and I know that's wrong. Like I should be like, oh, that's horrible. How do you sleep at night? But to me, I'm like, that's like genius.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and I feel bad about that. It's horrible.
It's good. Yeah. But we moved on. And I tell you, in the way that it stopped, basically was I received a phone call from another carrier who said, hey, I was just at this show and I was talking to this other carrier and he was telling me about this guy named Harold who's doing these finances. I want to do that job. I want to do that gig too. Can you put me in touch with him? And I was like, yeah, this is now way out of control, right? Because now the victims are running to me. Right.
I was going to say, and they're not even supposed to know that you are even, so the fact that they went to you to ask about him.
Correct.
And now there's a connection that's out there.
I'm freaking out. Right. So, and then I said, Harold, we're not doing this anymore. And so we stopped, and I still have money in the Caymans. I was
going to say you still got $6 million.
Still got $6 million, but you know what? This isn't like a normal scam. It was more fun for Harold than it was for me. I got a full-time job.
Right.
I mean, I'm still doing billing and collections. I'm still chasing bad guys around that I can't work deals with. Harold's got all the money, and he's an entrepreneur, so he's running around. He's on private jets, and he's going back and forth to Caymans. He brings me back money. Every once in a while, I'll go with him, but I'm working my ass off. And but we stopped, and some months go by. And my boss calls me. I'm out in Palm Springs, California, freaking chasing bad guys out there at a conference. And he called me, and it was, I remember getting up early. It was like, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning out in California. And he said, Walt, I got a couple things to go over with you. One, we got to go to Chicago next week. Number two, we got some requisitions. I want you to, you got to hire some people. You're falling behind. And I said, I know. And he said, and finally, this guy, some woman in the audit group is bugging me about this journal voucher. Move some money around. Can you look into it? And I said, sure. Give me the name of the account. And he told me the name of the account. It was Christian News Network. which was one of the biggest fraud accounts that Harold and I had used in our scam.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, I've been caught. It's just a matter of time. They just don't know it. So we talked for a moment more, and then I just out of nowhere told my boss, I said, you know what, I quit. I'm not coming back to work. Because I'm freaking out. I'm not even listening to anything after he says that.
Has WorldCom bought or merged?
Not yet, but we were supposed to be being bought within a few months from British Telecom, and that actually came out in the conversation. What do you mean you're quitting? We're getting ready to be purchased.
Right.
I'm cashing out for well over $1 million of stock options inside my company. I'm 32 years old, so I didn't need to steal anything, basically, to have cashed out. But my stock options don't vest if I'm not with the company. I mean, so it's almost like
you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like that's just
no one would
stupidity.
Do it. No, right. You got 3. You can't hang in there for 4 more months.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know.
Down. Yeah.
So they begged me to come back to work. I got all these executives calling me. Hey, well, come back to work. I don't, we'll put you in a different position. I know you're under a lot of pressure. And then, they start looking at my computers and stuff, and they're like, holy shit, we got a much bigger problem here. Can you come in, and Internal Investigations would like to talk to you? And I'm like, you know what? I'm hiring an attorney. And then it just went bad. I mean, then I got banks suing me because I had done some things with these loans with some of these carriers. It gets complex, but I had civil litigation going on. I mean, my life just sort of imploded. Man, I got target letter. This is back in the old days. I mean, today FBI shows up, they got flak jackets on. They're busting down doors. They sent you a note. Hey, do you have any Cayman documents? No, we don't have any. Right.
Right.
That's obstruction of justice. But now they just don't even wait for that anymore. They just come in and go get the documents. But it took a while to kind of go through this. And you were asking earlier about did you know that what you were doing is wrong? Well, clearly I know that I'm in trouble, and this isn't going to end well. I start finding out about federal sentencing guidelines, and I'm like,
what is the dollar amount?
It started off large and then kept getting bigger, but it ended up being about a little over $6.5 million.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't get much larger. They tried to make it more, but they couldn't.
Right.
Then there was just other things that it was so confusing as about who lost money here? The carriers didn't really lose any money.
Right.
They didn't lose anything. They got a pretty good deal. Like TNI, as an example, didn't have to pay the $2 million. But they said, oh, yeah, but they ripped me off $250,000. And they were, well...
Wait, but you owe $2 million.
You owe $2 million.
Right.
MCI was really grossly marking up these minutes. And so it became really confusing. How much money was it? Was it really worth?
Right.
And so they just used the net number that we had received, which is a little over $6 million. And
they could have gone way worse than that.
It could have,
like nowadays.
Nowadays, well, see, the guidelines were different then. They were lower.
Right.
They were actually lower for dollar amount then. And I cooperated.
Right.
I pled guilty. I cooperated. My buddy Harold decided. I told him I was going to go. I said, look, we're toast.
Yeah, we're done.
I'm done. So I'm going to turn myself in. Oh, it's going to blow over.
It's not blowing over.
You're not going to blow over.
It's not especially when. So at this point, when you're going through this, is now the merger happening with MCI?
Well, so here's what's happened is interesting about the merger, because I want to bring it home to those people, and even you, who know about MCI Worldcom. How did this happen? I'm going through all this. I'm pleading guilty. I pick up the Wall Street Journal, and in the Wall Street Journal it says MCI's / WorldCom's carrier division, resale division, the division that I was over, is announcing a one-time write-off because of things that have, some bad debt that they have. It was $687 million. So that was the beginning of the end. It was like, holy shit, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
The SEC wanted to get involved. Right before WorldCom was going to buy MCI, British Telecom was in the last stages of buying the company. I can't remember exact numbers, but it was like, I don't know, 50 billion. And then British Telecom said, we've kind of looked at your books, and we think we might want to go down to like 42 billion.
Right.
And MCI was pitching a fit, and WorldCom comes in and says, well, we'll not only pay you 50, we'll pay you 60. British Telecom was given $1 billion to walk away from the deal so that WorldCom could buy MCI. And then they combined the two companies. And then that's when all shit broke loose. And WorldCom had been on a rampage of buying companies. And they were cooking the books on their side as well.
Yeah, so, that was their part of their money making scheme was just continue to acquire additional companies.
Acquire, write off as you go, try to bury some bodies as you go. And then a lot of people forget WorldCom had a bid to buy Sprint. And when they bought Sprint, the board of directors at Sprint approved the merger, and the FCC stepped in and said, "No, you can't do it."
Right.
And after that, that's when all the bodies were found. Right. That's when all the accounting fraud was found. So it took it a little while to come out. But
what was the total? Do you know the number for the total fraud that they were hit?
Yeah, I think it was $12.5 billion. It was a large number, and that only happened basically over a short period of time, within like a year. I mean, that was the amount that they had hidden, and then really a heavy transactions took place to hide, I think, expenses and equity and all that. It was pretty complicated.
Right. And so your loss, the loss that you had covered, was in that loss.
Yeah.
But by that point, you're already. Are you in prison yet? Or
I'm in.
I'm watching this on the news.
Matt, there is nothing that brings more joy to somebody in prison than seeing someone who's in more trouble than they are, right? Because I'm already. I knew I'm in trouble. Here I am. But I said these guys are going to jail.
Yeah. How much time did you get?
41 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you go straight to a camp? Just
straight to a camp.
Okay.
Yeah, I went straight to a camp at Jessup, Georgia, and then Edgefield, South Carolina, because they had the RDAP program. So I went to, which I didn't even know about. It just started, back then. So.
I'm wondering. So I know that several of the people in WorldCom ended up getting small sentences. 18 months, 5 years, 3 years. A lot of these guys got small. But then the main the CEO, was it of
Bernie Ebbers?
Yeah. What do you get? 25 years.
25 years. Yep. And he spent all of that time in prison and was released earlier this year and passed away within a couple of months. Yeah. He was released on compassionate release and then passed away. Yeah, so he had spent, and look, Bernie Ebbers, just like the MCI's founder, is a guy named Bill McGowan. Bill McGowan's smoker, drinker, entrepreneur, have fun, party, and that's what our culture was, and it fit very well with WorldCom. Bernie Ebbers was a junior high school basketball coach, and had a
super frugal, but then got super greedy as time went on.
He did, but he had his big breakthrough in telecom happened when a buddy of his had a hotel, and he said, "Hey, it's a small hotel, I don't know, 50 rooms or something." He says, "Look, I'm going to invent long distance discounters so that when they pick up their phone and their thing, they get like a lower rate than they would if they were to call from that hotel room across the country, because that used to be a really expensive phone call."
Right.
So that's what he started, long distance discounters. And then he got another hotel and another hotel and another hotel, and he had their long distance riding pretty much on MCI's network. And then he turned that into a company called LDDS, and LDDS went to WorldCom, became WorldCom, and he had these visions of buying AT&T one day. But it was a success story. He was a crazy entrepreneur, and he did well.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's funny because I watched a documentary on him, how he was so just cheap the whole way through,
right?
And then towards the end, it just got insane. He was blowing tons of money on yachts and houses and jets, and it was like
timber.
What happened?
Thousands and thousands of acres, and most of his. What was interesting is that a lot of his wealth, the things that he enjoyed in life were debt related that were collateralized by his stock price. Okay, so when the stock price fell, he really has nothing left. They just took everything from him. I mean, he held on to his stock. He rode his stock to the end, and lost considerable amount of his wealth. There wasn't along with everybody else. So he was a very unique guy. But you're right. He had all these stories about being frugal, about the amount of coffee that they were.
Stop paying for any of the
Everybody's got to buy their own coffee,
right?
All that kind of stuff.
He just spent $40 million on a new yacht.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
It was marketing. He thought of it as marketing. I mean, I don't know. He was an interesting character, and he was cowboy boots. Just a nice
shtick, right?
It was a good shtick. He was a nice guy. He'd buy you a drink. He would talk to you. He could talk about anything. I mean,
like Sarah Palin. First thing she does is sell the jet or the state-owned jet. It's great. Makes for a great soundbite. You know what I'm saying? But what's really happening behind the scenes is something completely different.
No, that was very true of WorldCom. And there was there were really bright people that got involved, and a lot of the reasons that I know you guys talk about a lot of true crime, but basically, the way the federal system is, if you can turn on somebody, you're going to get a much lesser sentence, significantly less than the person you turn on. And to nab a CEO is like the ultimate prize for Justice Department. I mean, that was the ultimate. And even their CFO, Scott Sullivan, I think he got 5 years. Significant sentence, but for a $12 billion,
that's
not that much. So
it's funny too, because I go back and forth on that. Like sometimes I think it was $100 million. Like that guy should have got 20 years. But then I go back and forth, and then I think, he didn't kill anybody. You know what I'm saying? It was he cooked the book. He changed some numbers around. Like so, I kind of it's like, okay, so you're going to give a rapist 10 years. You can't give this guy 20.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? So it's the sentencing guidelines, the people that come up with them. I mean, it's a balancing act. Like it's never going to be fair to everybody. So every time I think about that, I'll think, this guy owes $300 million and he got 5 years. That's ridiculous. But then I think, but he didn't hurt anybody. He didn't physically harm anybody. He cooked the books and nobody lost money. It was a bank loan.
The other thing I'll add to that, and this is something I've thought about too, is where are the regulators in this business? There are a lot of people with oversight who didn't get prosecuted. I mean, let's go to
Bernie Madoff. What about
Bernie Madoff is a great exexample. Bernie Madoff, they said, what is it, 50 billion? All right, I'm going to give Bernie $1 billion. The other 49 billion should be on the SEC. Because where in the hell are they?
Yeah.
Right, and
he was looked at several times. Like they never followed up. They never did their due diligence. Like he said, here are the transactions. They never looked into it.
Where's that guy? Where are those people that failed to do oversight? And I'm not justifying what he did, but I'm just saying, look, after a while, what's the purpose of having regulators and oversight? Right. And there's a lot of pressure on these businesses, and they need to play by the rules. And when they step out of line, let's whack them early. So that instead of later.
What's funny about that? Like I actually just did an interview in Oklahoma City with an elected official over the public records system there, and I was asking him, I'm like, if I provide you with a document, you're going to record it. He's like, we have to record it. I said, right, I understand, but I said, what if it doesn't look right? And he's like, well, we have to record it no matter what. I said, so if I write it in green crayon, you have to record it. And he went, we have to record. I said, but you could look at, why don't you call? You can call. And he goes, no, by law, we're not allowed to call.
Right.
So I come in with a fake satisfaction of mortgage for a $300,000 mortgage. I have a fake satisfaction as long as it has this notary stamp, the OR book and page number match up, and I can match it up. He said, and and you paid the fee? He said, we record it. We cannot call. He said, even if someone's saying this is fraud, he goes, nope, can't call.
Wow.
We're not allowed to call. He's like, that's why this fraud happens. And I can imagine the SEC has those same types of constrict to a degree. Sometimes people, they'll say, well, you should have this, you should have that. But sometimes it's so regulated that they can't. I remember I talked to the FBI one time, and I was like, why don't you go into brokers and give them a scenario where they have to make the loan go through, they have to commit. Fraud has to be involved. I can come up with 5 scenarios where you go in and say this and this and this. There's no way to make that loan happen unless fraud's involved.
Right.
And they said, well, that would be us interfering with commerce. And I went, and she said, we're not allowed to interfere with commerce. And I went,
let it go down.
I said, so you have to let it happen, and then come in. She goes, exactly. I go, I said, well, that's good to know. For me, I know that if we actually schedule a closing, that means that nobody, I wasn't being set up. If there's a closing schedule and I get there and I sign, like I know that the FBI wasn't involved because they wouldn't be allowed to be involved in that transaction. I mean, it's those kinds of things that you go, this is insane. Like if you know those things, then you can run rampant.
Right. Right.
So okay, so
back to we'll go back to my story real quick though. That was good. I did. Harold ended up getting 5 years. Canadian citizen, so he had to go to a low, and he was deported and hadn't heard from him since. There's a couple of other guys that were involved directly in mine, and they did. I think one guy another guy got 5 years. He was an attorney. You get the enhancement for the attorney, and then another guy did 18 months. So
I got the enhancement for being a mortgage broker.
Yeah, you're in a position of responsibility. Right, and anytime you're in a white collar crime, sophisticated.
Yeah. I always love using. Now they'll say using a specialty device in furtherance of your crime, which means it's like, what was the specialty device? You use the computer.
Yeah, it's a cell phone.
Who doesn't use a cell phone? Like what?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, okay, but you went to prison. You got out, and then you started doing. I know you started consulting, and you started doing. Like I've seen you online, where you're doing the speeches, keynote speeches in front of universities and MBA programs, and.
The oddest way I got into that, Matt, I was walking the track in Edgefield, South Carolina, and the warden comes up to me and says, "Hey, the FBI wants to talk to you," and we've, like Monday, he says, we got a conference room on Wednesday. You just go in there and, talk to them. And I was like, about what? I don't know. They want to talk to you. And, that's a holy shit moment, right? It's like, what? I don't want to talk to.
I'm already in trouble.
I'm in trouble. I'm done. I'm getting ready to, I'm like getting out of here.
They forgot to charge you with this.
I got like 6 or 7 months to go. I mean, it's like, what? And it was Agent Ray Kyle, who had worked on my case. And he said, "Hey, I got an opportunity for you. I mean, do you want to train some FBI agents and U.S. attorneys on the Enron and WorldCom task force?" And I was like, "Well, how the hell am I going to do that?" And he said, "Well, they want me to give a presentation, but I really don't like speaking in front of people. So can you do it?" And he says, "I'll just be up there with you. I might, I'm just going to introduce you, and you can tell them what you did." And I pretty much told him the same story that I told you today.
Right.
And except I did it as an incarcerated inmate in front of 300 U.S. attorneys and FBI agents.
So
first public, I was incarcerated.
They came and got you and moved you?
Came and got me and not moved me. They put me on an airplane and took me to Marina Del Rey, California for 3 days. And the FBI, it was just well received. Nobody had ever done it before except for one other guy, and his name is Frank Abagnale.
I was just going to say, that's some Frank Abagnale stuff.
So the handler for Frank was there, and he said, "Hey, Frank's getting ready to have this movie made about him, and he's getting older. Would you come to the FBI Academy?" And I was like, wow, this is just crazy. And so they got me speaking events. The FBI worked on getting me speaking events after Enron and WorldCom collapsed. Business schools were looking for ethics teachers and ethics, and I had the FBI on my resume.
Yeah.
And, spoke probably now to over 100 schools. I did new hire training for KPMG, new hire auditors for 17 years. It just became a way to, try to get back, what am I going to do, when I get back out? And the other thing is, Matt, is I enjoy it. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I meet interesting people. Right. About 11 years ago, I was approached by Neil Weinberg, who co-wrote the book Stolen Without a Gun with me. And he said, "Hey, would you start writing for Forbes, a blog?" And been doing that for over 11 years. And then I started writing for NYU Law, again on white collar crime.
Right.
And it's just, these stories are fascinating. I mean, the work that you're doing is amazing. I mean, I think that's, people can learn from these. I mean, you can look at a crime like the one that I committed or the one that you were involved in, and you can sort of get wow, that's crazy, but I think there's also a deterrent in that too, by telling people like, hey, you know what, it never works out. It's always a bad ending. You know, I mean, you're never going to be able to interview the white collar guy who said, man, I stole $15 million and I got away with it.
Yeah.
Right. So unless he was the CEO of a bank somewhere, you know, those guys get away.
And kept it.
Yeah,
and committed another fraud by keeping the money. So,
those stories just don't exist, right?
Well, it's funny because being in prison, like you're like, okay, so when we initially, I was locked up when we first communicated with each other. So I remember.
I don't know, how the hell did you find me? I don't even.
Okay, so I think it was Marcus you'd written a letter to Marcus Schrinker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he showed me the letter, and somebody else had also had a letter from you, or had also.
I think I was looking for material at the time. That's what I was. I was starting to write guys in prison. I could look them up. I could look them up on BOP. I'd find out about You're exactly right. I remember doing it. I was like, hey, who are you? I'm on Core Links. I'd like to communicate with you, and then I can write about your story. Right. Yeah, exactly.
So we started communicating, and I remember, and when you kind of explained what you did, I remember thinking, maybe I could do that. And you were like, you could definitely do this. You know,
right.
Get you on it. You could start being a keynote speaker, blah, blah, blah. And we talked about it. And I remember that there were so many guys in prison that have done frauds that are fascinating. And everybody I met, like with the exception of you, everybody I met that I would consider a con man that was in prison were all actively trying to figure out, how do I get out and bury this?
Right.
Like, how do I hide from this? And
right.
I was the only one that was saying, no, I'm not going to hide from this. Like I don't want to spend the rest of my life lying. Like lying is what got me here.
Right.
So I'm not thinking that by continuing that behavior, my life's going to turn around, and I need this to turn around.
Right.
And you were the only person that was sitting there, and I was looking at it, I was like, this isn't Frank Abagnale, who's kind of like, it's like the creme de la creme of criminal, like thinking, oh, that could be me, because I was thinking that's impossible. Like, he's gonna have a movie, he's got a movie, he's got all this stuff. But I'm like, the real people that I can actually talk to and connect with, like, this guy's writing me letters. Right. This guy didn't run from this. This guy said, look, this is what I did, and I screwed up, and here's what I'm doing now, and deal with it.
Right.
And I thought, this is what I want to be. This is the guy that I want to emulate, you know. So that's when I started thinking along. I was already writing stories.
Yeah, you were, and they were good stories. You were sending me a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I can't, but you're handcuffed in prison. I mean, you really are. It's like there's just nothing that you can do, and you're trying to, and for somebody to. Really, you need an agent that comes out there.
You need an advocate. You were the only person that was saying, you can do this.
Yeah.
Everybody else is saying, get a job, working.
This format that you're doing now didn't even exist when we started writing.
The last couple of years, when I got out, people started coming, when they saw me writing, they started coming to me with stories about true crime podcasts. And I was like, well, I don't even know what is a podcast? Like, the word podcast didn't exist.
Right.
People don't even realize that podcast is a made-up word, which is combined from what? It's like there's two different things. It's like a broadcast and pod or whatever. Like, it's a portion of a broadcast. Like it's a made-up word that developed while I was in prison.
Right.
It didn't even exist before I was in prison. Right. So all of these things, and you were like I said, you were the only person that was saying, this is what you can do, and this is what I am doing. And when you get out, contact me.
Yep.
I remember I tried to get you to come into the prison, and you sent your stuff in. But in it, you know what happened?
I think I said that I wrote for Forbes, right?
You wrote for Forbes. And because of that, my counselor was so brain dead that he's a reporter.
Yeah.
And I went, I know. He was Counselor Carey. And I go, I know Carey. I know he's a reporter, but he's not coming to see me as a reporter. He's coming to see me because we're thinking about writing an ethics and fraud course. And he teaches, he speaks at MBA programs around the country, and I could do this. He's saying I can do this. And he's like, he's a reporter. I understand that. I said, Carrie, listen, if my mother was a reporter, she would still be able to come see me, right? And he goes, all reporters have to go through the public information officer. And I was like, no, and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, you're the perfect BOP employee.
Yeah,
like,
you are. You don't get any better than you.
And I just was like, Yeah, okay, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm never getting through to this guy.
No.
Never.
No.
And so you never.
You've already
you
lost.
never were-
Yeah, I think I do remember. I think you may have told me, said, "Can you submit another one that doesn't say Forbes on it?"
Right. And we.
But
Yeah,
that time it was probably too late.
Yeah. I had a. There was a. I needed a whole new counselor to be involved, and this guy's my counselor. He gets all this stuff. Like it was never going to work after that. Yeah, he was. God, they're just so bad.
No, that's
so
good.
bad.
No, but this is good. I think these sorts of platforms, being able to tell stories, I think that places like American Greed on CNBC is an example. Don't do justice to a lot of the things.
Well, they have to villainize you.
Right, and they're rarely talking to the person who perpetrated the crime. Very rarely, they're talking to like all the investing. Oh yeah, I busted his ass, and and all the and so you get this one side of the story. You don't really get the other. What happened. Hell, I was there. You were there. You know what? And we have nothing to gain by saying that something else happened that didn't happen. I mean, I find defendants in cases much more believable than the authorities.
Yeah.
Because the authorities rarely understand exactly what the guy did, and they just got to make up a story, and it's just like, this is our narrative. And
you always have to be an extreme villain.
Correct.
Like my crime, they actually went with like the whole, he preyed on single mothers, and it's like listen, in that period of time, I dated 5 women. 3 of them had children. Why don't you talk to the other 2? Well, because that doesn't. We're going with the you preyed on single mothers. Like, why? Because that was a big thing then.
Right.
Protect single mothers, and this guy's a horrible. Well, what do you talk? Like it's what I'm saying. They have to come up with something to make you a horrible individual. And it was like, and that's one of many things they grabbed on. It's like, I just did an interview in Amsterdam for a documentary, and they were like, well, we need to talk to some of your victims. And I said, Bank of America's still open. You can talk to. So I start naming off banks, and they're like, well, we were thinking, like individuals. And I went, well, there's 4 individuals in my case that lost money.
Yeah.
None of them that I stole from directly, but they did as a result of my crime. They ended up owing money. And I said, so now you've got over 55 banks. So you want to come up with a segment of that victim list that represents the victims in my crime. I said, then you should be talking to banks.
Right.
But that doesn't sell.
No.
They want someone to get on there and say, oh, I lost $9,000. And
yep. No, you're right. You're right. But that's the beauty about this format. I mean, you're I think you're cutting it down to just tell us what happened.
Yeah.
It makes it's easier to understand too than the other stuff, I think. What I mean? And so I mean, I do think that more of these stories need to get out there. I was talking to somebody at a business school, and I said, you guys ought to stop teaching ethics here to these students and start teaching federal sentencing guidelines.
I said that the whole time. It's terrifying.
No one's ever even heard of them before. I never heard of them. When they start looking at points and all these, you're like, wow, wire fraud's that? I don't have to actually receive the money in order to get punished for it. I mean, like insider trading is a great example. If I worked inside of a Fortune 500 company and I handed you 10 grand, or you paid me 10 grand to go trade on stock because I'm going to give you, we're getting ready to, this other company's getting ready to merge with us and buy us, and so you got to give me some money for that. You gave me 10 grand and then you went out and traded on it and you made 10 million. I'm on the hook for 10 million.
Yeah.
I got 10 grand. I mean, a lot of people, that's your guideline sentence for, somebody like, I'm just giving you some information. I didn't make that much money.
Yeah. They have no idea. Like
crazy.
I know a guy that got 30 years because he sold heroin to this guy. This guy sold the heroin to somebody else. That person OD'd. He got charged with, the murder, and he got 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's murder. It's like, oh no, it's an accidental overdose. No, murder. We're charging you with, a death and it's like, well, I didn't sell it to that person.
Serious time.
Yeah.
Serious. And there's segues to say, okay, I kind of get that, but and that's okay if everybody understood that that's what the game is, right? This is how it works. You would say, hey, better not do heroin because if you deal in that and somebody dies, the risk is I could go away for a long period of time.
I got the same thing. I know another guy named Brandon in prison who got like 20 or 25 years. Same thing. He was a bouncer at a club. Some girl was taking Oxy, and she said, look, she asked him, do you know anybody that sells Oxy? And he said, well, I know a guy that sells like heroin. He might have Oxy. She goes, what's his number? Gave her the number. 2 weeks later, she died because that guy gave her heroin.
You're in.
And that's it. You just
involved.
got charged with your murder. You're a murderer now.
You're involved.
I gave her a name. I didn't make a dime. They're young. They were all young, early 20s. And, he thought he literally thought he was doing someone a favor.
Yeah. No.
So it's just ridiculous.
Same as in white collar crime. There's always different segues, ways to get in trouble that you didn't envision in a bad spot. Most of the time you should walk away, but it's really.
Oh, now
hard.
Somebody says, "Hey man, can you give me a phone number?" No. But can you talk to me? Like, I'm not asking you to do anything. I get on Messenger all the time, like, bro, I actually did a whole video on it. It was like, I actually had a guy fly down from New York one time who had basically tried to be like friends with me. Like he was a fan and we were friends. And then he actually 6 months this went on. Then he flew down, met me at a coffee shop and tried to convince me to teach him how to commit bank fraud. And I was like, I said, do you understand I'm already on the indictment? No, I'm not asking you to. I won't say nothing. First of all, you will. But let's assume you didn't. It doesn't matter. My phone number's in your phone.
Right.
Our messages are on the phone. Now we've been making phone calls now that you've flown here.
Right.
Like nobody's going to believe that you flew here and I didn't help you.
Right.
I said, they won't even question me. They'll just put me down on the indictment.
Right.
One day they'll show up and arrest me. I said, it won't matter. I said, I can't get on. The people don't realize that I can't now go to trial because I can't get on the stand.
Right.
Because they'll say, Mr. Cox, you've been convicted of fraud a few times before, haven't you? That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Not credible.
Right. I said, I'll basically have to walk in and just say, look, man, just like, what's the best deal I can get? Well, do you feel you did anything? No, I don't feel I did anything, but I got to take a deal. So how much
do we do this?
Right.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the guidelines would be scare the crap out of people.
Yeah, it's good. They're good to know. Good to know. You should know that. You should know what the perils are of not following the rules.
Right.
So,
I think. Do you have anything else you want to say? I
no,
think that's
good.
great.
That's
okay.
good.
All right. So this one. Yep. All right. It's so funny because I'll say this in the thing. I'll be like, this one, like, we don't cut out anything. Okay, hey, I appreciate you guys. This was Walt Pavlo. I appreciate you watching. If you like the video, do me a favor, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, hit the bell to be notified, leave a comment for the algorithm. I appreciate it, and make sure you share the video as many times as possible, and don't be shy about watching it 3 or 4 times, and all the ads. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you.